You know, after a storm hits, that road to recovery, it can be incredibly long and just plain frustrating. Well, today, we're looking at a brand new playbook that's designed to fix exactly that. We're going to deconstruct Title V of the Road to Housing Act, which is this really significant piece of legislation that's meant to totally change how we respond to disasters and how we create affordable housing.
Okay, so what's in this new playbook? Well, we're going to start by looking at the problem it's trying to solve. Then we'll dive into its two main parts: a whole new strategy for disaster recovery and a fresh plan for modernizing housing. After that, we'll see how data is the glue that connects everything, and then we'll wrap it all up with the big picture takeaways.
To really get why this law is such a big deal, we have to go back to that moment right after the storm passes. You know, what happens when all the cameras leave and communities are just left to pick up the pieces? For so many, that's when the real challenge, the one of slow, fragmented aid, truly begins.
So what happens when help is too slow? Well, the recovery itself can start to feel like a second disaster. Instead of a clear path forward, families find themselves stuck in this maze of paperwork and different aid programs that don't talk to each other. They're basically left in limbo, totally unable to rebuild, while these systemic delays just drag on and on.
And you can see the usual suspects, the roadblocks, right here. Funding is late. The bureaucracy is a tangled mess. Different agencies end up doing the same work, which is a huge waste of resources. It's just a broken road. This whole frustrating cycle is exactly what Title V is designed to completely tear down and rebuild from the ground up.
All right, so how do we fix this broken road? Well, the first part of the answer is something called the Reforming Disaster Recovery Act. And the main idea here is pretty simple. Let's stop reinventing the wheel after every single storm. Instead, let's create a permanent, reliable playbook for the federal government to actually follow.
This new foundation is built on three key pillars. First, it sets up a new Office of Disaster Management inside the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, to act as the central command post. Second, it creates a permanent pre-filled disaster recovery fund, so the money is actually ready to go when it's needed. And third, it makes the main aid program official law, a process called codification.
And that brings us to a really crucial change, making the CDBG-DR program permanent. See, in the old system, Congress had to debate and then pass a special funding bill after every single major disaster, and that caused these massive, painful delays. This act just flips the switch. It creates a standing program with the rules already in place, which makes relief predictable and, most importantly, fast.
And here is the magic number: 70%. The law mandates that at least 70% of all these funds have to go directly to benefit low and moderate income families. And this isn't just a suggestion, it's a hard and fast rule designed to make sure that help gets to the most vulnerable households first.
But you know, recovery isn't just about rebuilding what was lost. It's about building back better. So the second major part of this act is all about creating more resilient and affordable communities for the long haul. And it does this by completely overhauling a key federal housing program called the Home Investment Partnerships Program.
Now, this slide shows a huge change in who can get help. Before, the HOME program was strictly for families that were officially defined as low income. But now, that eligibility is expanded to include families earning up to 100% of the area's median income. That means a much wider range of people, think teachers, firefighters, nurses in a lot of communities, can now actually get assistance.
And this isn't just about building more houses, it's about building lasting affordability. The law encourages these really innovative models like community land trusts and shared equity ownership. Think of it this way. These strategies help separate the cost of the land from the cost of the actual house, which keeps homes affordable for the next family and the one after that. You're creating permanently affordable communities.
Of course, a house needs a lot more than just four walls, right? It needs to be connected to things. The Act totally gets this, and it allows funds to be used for essential infrastructure. We're talking water, sewer, and roads. This is a game changer, especially for smaller communities, making sure that new affordable housing is actually livable and connected.
Okay, so we've got a new disaster response system, and we've got modernized housing programs. But how does the government make sure these two big reforms actually work together efficiently? Well, the answer lies in smart data coordination. The solution is data sharing. The Act basically forces HUD to work together with FEMA, that's the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the SBA, the Small Business Administration. Survivors often have to apply to all three for different kinds of aid. So now, instead of operating in their own separate silos, these agencies are going to share data, which lets HUD coordinate everything and get a complete picture of what a family truly needs.
So what's the real outcome of all this data sharing?
Well, you can see it right here. First, it stops families from getting the same aid twice. Second, it speeds up recovery because information gets passed from one agency to the next instead of making families start from scratch every time. And third, it cuts down on fraud, waste, and abuse. It's really like the behind-the-scenes plumbing that makes the whole system faster, fairer, and a lot more accountable.
All right, let's pull all these threads together. What is this new road home that the Act is trying to build? It's really a fundamental shift in how we, as a nation, approach both disaster and housing.
The core vision here is a system that is proactive, not reactive. It's about having a permanent framework ready before a disaster ever strikes. It's about creating housing that isn't just affordable, but is also resilient and built to last. And it's about using data to make the entire process more efficient, all while making sure we prioritize the needs of the most vulnerable families in any community.
So this legislation gives us a powerful new toolkit, for sure. But the ultimate question remains, will this new framework be enough to face the next generation of disasters? See, having a playbook is an absolutely critical first step, but the real test is always going to be how we execute that plan when the next storm hits. The new road has been paved, but the journey, well, that's just beginning.